Happy Hump Day! It's a Wednesday. Welcome to the Sean O'Connell Show. Glad to have you with us. If you're not able to catch the whole show live today, quick reminder, you can find us at ESPN700sports.com. You can download the ESPN 700 app. You could tell your smart speaker to play ESPN 700. You can find us on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. We've got an on-demand section, so you don't have to miss it. There's no excuse for you to miss all 3 hours of the show today. Glad to have you here. The Sean O'Connell Show today and every day brought to you by Les Schwab Tires. Tires for whatever you drive, wheels for whatever you drive, accessories for whatever you drive. Tell them OC sent you. Many locations up and down the Wasatch Front. The NFL meetings have given us some interesting results. We'll get into that today. There's a growing concern in Arizona that Utah could potentially steal another professional sports team from the Valley of the Sun. There have been now two relatively high-ranking officials who've mentioned exactly that as a possibility. I don't think Arizona is going to let it happen, but we'll discuss what that could mean for the state of Utah. The first game of the Western Conference final was last night in the NBA playoffs. You had the first game of the Eastern Conference final in the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs. We'll get to all of that on the show today. Roxy Bernstein is going to join us at noon. I'll be honest with you, the Roxy Bernstein conversation is going to go any of 100 different ways because Roxy can talk every sport and is great at talking every sport and calls pretty much every sport under the sun. Robin Leano is going to join us at 1 o'clock to talk a little Utah Mammoth, one of the hosts of the Locked On Mammoth podcast. As of all these Utah Mammoth players at the Hockey World Championships are having their moments. Clayton Keller's the captain. Logan Cooley has really, as Tom Callahan was telling us the other day, has really kind of made a bit of a star turn through this World Championship tournament. Kesselring's played well. And Doan beat Veggie for representation from the Utah Mammoth players in that World Championship tournament. We'll get to some of that with Robin Leano. James Peterson is handling some other duties, his program director duties today. Olivia is producing instead. And I've been instructed that you just want to talk lots of sport. I'm going to just open the mic and let you talk sports all day, right?
Absolutely. I could absolutely just take over the show. Like,
okay.
I think I could do it for sure.
All right. Go ahead. We won't do that to Olivia. We're not going to put you on the spot too much. This is actually going to be nice for me today, Olivia, because when James is producing, James, he really does want to take over the show sometimes.
He's a yapper for sure.
And so like, he'll just run, yeah. Like sometimes I'll say, James, what do you think of this? And then I'll just like go get up, refill my water bottle.
Just walk away for a minute.
I'll go use the restroom.
Yeah, he's got it.
I'll go chat with the bosses. I'll come back.
And he's still talking.
He's still
got 20 minutes left.
He hasn't even got to the point yet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
For sure.
So, Olivia, it's good to have a fresh face behind the glass. We'll have a little bit of fun today. I'm sure there's going to be some pop culture stuff. Like right now, Tom Cruise is on the television in front of me. He's on the Pat McAfee show right now. We were talking before the show about like some of the crazy stunt work that Tom Cruise does, and that's what he's known for now.
Yeah.
He was catching shade from the Dan Patrick show that he's not a good actor.
Well,
which, look, Tom Cruise might be a complete nut job. I don't know.
He's made it this far in media. Like he has to be good at something. And I feel like he's not a terrible actor. I think he's a pretty good actor.
He's in his 5th decade of acting. I think he's doing fine.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
There's a lot of actors that are washed up. Like he's still in movies.
I don't need I might be an outlier here. I don't need every actor to be Daniel Day-Lewis.
Yeah,
you know
absolutely
what I mean?
not. That's too much. Too serious.
I don't need everyone to just be like there's some that take it way, way, way too seriously.
Yeah.
And then there are those that seem like they're having fun and every once in a while probably have to pinch themselves that this is their life.
For sure.
Hollywood is its own strange bubble that I can't really get behind. A lot of like, I love watching movies.
Yeah.
I love television series.
Absolutely.
Most of the time, I don't want to hear the actors talking about who they are in real life.
They just mess it up.
It just
every
messes
time.
it up.
They just like say something, and it's just like, well, now I don't want to watch the movie because you said this, this, and this, and that. It's a mess.
And it's one of the side effects of media exposure and overexposure in some cases that has happened in sports as well.
Yeah.
Where in sports, I mean, I talk to people all the time on this show, and obviously away from the show as well. I talk a lot of sports.
Yeah.
I don't mind talking sports with my friends, even though it's my job to talk sports, because I love sports. It's my job. It's great. It's wonderful. It's not a real job. It's like, but
I'd hope so.
There are so many people who have a hard time. It compromises their enjoyment or their ability to watch certain players because they've seen that player open their mouth too many times.
Yeah.
Or they've heard the political stance of that player.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Yeah.
I just don't. Like, if Tom Cruise wants to tell me that he didn't vote for the same presidential candidate that I did, or he doesn't think that this policy or that, immigration should go one way or the other, Tom, I don't care.
Yeah.
Like, I just shut up.
He's not a political figure.
And by the way, I feel the same way most of the time when it's like LeBron James saying that stuff.
Yeah.
It doesn't compromise my ability to enjoy watching that person. Performing in athletics is not acting because you're still yourself.
Yeah.
As an actor, you're supposed to be a character. You're supposed to be someone else. Like Tom Cruise, I don't care about Tom Cruise. I care about Ethan Hunt in these Mission Impossible movies.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? LeBron James, the political activist, don't care. I just don't.
Yeah.
One way or the other. I'm not mad at him for having those stances.
Yeah.
But I also don't put any weight on his opinion. And I'm just like, all right, dude. Like,
yeah.
Especially when you're talking about people who are these elite stars in whatever their craft is, because they find ways, at the Oscars, they'll stand up there and they'll say what they want to say, or, in a post-game interview, they might sneak something in, or in an interview in general, they might sneak something in that has nothing to do with the sport. And oftentimes it is something, with a little bit of a political bent or a cause that's meaningful to them. And if it's something, especially on the political front, I'm like, you don't live in the same world as the rest of America does.
Yeah.
So it's not really relevant what your opinion is on, this thing or that thing, because you live in this White Castle on a hill.
Yeah, for sure.
Even if you're some gritty person, you came from, your ancestors were working the fields of the Midwest your whole life, or if you're someone who comes from a depressed urban environment, as is the case with a lot of NBA players and stuff like that. It's like, okay, I know that's not you anymore. So I need to hear from those people. You are not their representative anymore.
Yeah.
You have now been living in a Bel Air mansion for 25 years.
Yeah. You could donate to them. You could do other things that are much more meaningful than saying a 2-sentence, like, just right off the bat, just, oh, this, and this. Like, you could be doing so many more meaningful things than that, for sure.
In any case, we'll have some fun on the show today. Tom Cruise is no longer on my television, so that's probably as much as we'll talk. Let me ask you this before we move on completely. So Mission Impossible is out this week, right? The Lilo and Stitch live action remake is out this week. Jurassic World is coming out in a month, the Jurassic World Rebirth.
Yeah.
There's all these movie franchises. I'm sure I'm missing plenty of the summer blockbusters that are supposed to come out.
It's a big time for media.
Are you anticipating? Are there any of those where you're like, I got to see that opening day, I got to see that opening night?
I'm not really that kind of person. I like watching it, like, I don't know. I'm also like balling on a budget, and so most of the time I'm like, oh, I'll wait for it to come on streaming services. Like, I have like a projector at home. Like, I don't like need to see it in theaters. Literally the only thing I'm locked into is Sunrise on the Reaping, which doesn't even come out until next year. That's the Hunger Games thing.
Oh, okay.
That's it.
All right. So here's a detailed look, of our slate.
Okay.
Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. That's a May release.
Yeah.
Lilo and Stitch. The Phoenician Scheme. I have no idea what that is.
No clue.
Karate Kid Legends.
That one looks good.
This is bringing the Karate Kid television series and the Karate Kid movie remakes together. So
I'll probably go watch that with my boyfriend.
Okay, that'll be interesting. In June, you've got How to Train Your Dragon.
Okay.
Which is, again, the live-action remake of the animated, now I guess you could call it classic. I don't know if it's old enough to be classic. People like it. It's a good one.
Yeah.
Ballerina, this one is a John Wick franchise.
Oh, haven't heard of it.
Okay. Have you watched the John Wick movies?
I've seen one of them.
Okay. If you've seen one, you've seen them all.
Yeah,
they're all the same.
Pretty much.
It's just Keanu Reeves killing people and completely unrealistic gun battles and stuff.
Absolutely.
Well, what they've done is they've realized, all right, we made that movie 4 times. We probably can't do anything new with it. So now they're doing a female John Wick. Now it's Ana de Armas as John Wick, basically.
I could get into that.
I could get into that
great.
too. Like that does sound great.
Flip the narrative.
So that's wonderful. And then in July, you've got Jurassic World Rebirth and the Fantastic Four. So there's a Superman coming out. Ooh, the Smashing Machine. I'm okay. People who don't know the Smashing Machine. The Smashing Machine is the name of a documentary about a former mixed martial arts fighter, Mark Kerr.
Okay.
And it's a really, really fascinating documentary about just the really rough, gritty world of like 1990s MMA.
Oh.
And one man in particular who was just a freak of nature. And they decided to make this into a Hollywood film with The Rock playing Mark Kerr.
I'm already in.
Okay.
Yeah.
And he's wearing like facial prosthetics and stuff. He doesn't look like Dwayne Johnson. He looks more like
I feel like that
Mark
would
Kerr.
be a great movie for him.
And I think Emily Blunt is playing his wife, if I'm not mistaken. So like automatically those two in the movie, I'm watching.
I'm down. I'm there.
Anyway.
Yeah.
So lots of summer blockbuster movies coming out. 877-353-0700. Tell me which ones you're going to watch. Sorry I got sidetracked by Tom Cruise being on my television in front of me here in the studio. I wanted to address this. 2 days in a row now, I have, in my research, didn't have to dig far to find Arizona officials expressing concern that the Arizona Diamondbacks are going to, hey, guys, we got to get this thing figured out. We got to get this tax reclaim bill. There's a bill right now in Arizona for the Diamondbacks to be able to basically get help for financial help, I should say, for remodels that have to happen at Chase Field, for incentives for the D-backs to stick around. And this deal feels like it's close, according to most people, but now 2 different officials have said, hey, we don't want this Diamondbacks team to be the Utah whatever. That's the Diamondback lens on it. That's the Arizona lens on it. I very much want the Arizona Diamondbacks to end up in Utah. This is an acceleration, potentially, of the timeline that we have been talked about, or we have told you to talk about on these airwaves. This 2030-ish type timeline is what we keep hearing from Big League Utah officials, Major League Baseball officials. When is it happening? If it could happen, what's the most likely timeline for Utah or whoever else? Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. It's going to be Utah. Oregon can't get out of their own way politically, so it would be Utah probably getting the expansion franchise to match the Nashville expansion franchise, which feels very, very likely. You got to do one on the eastern side of the United States, one on the western side of the United States. It makes it cleanest, easiest possibility here. That probably won't happen till 2028, 2030. If the Arizona Diamondbacks can't get their stuff together with the city, with Phoenix and with Arizona, then what happens? Well, the same thing potentially could happen to the Arizona Diamondbacks, where Major League Baseball steps in and says, "Hey guys, you know what? This facility is no longer up to par. You need $400 to $500 million worth of stadium upgrades here, or this is not going to be deemed an acceptable place for us to continue sending visiting franchises, etc. That's what happened with the NHL. The NHL said to the to the Coyotes ownership, they said, look, man, you have to have an arena, like a real NHL arena. You can't keep playing at Mullet Arena on the campus of Arizona State University in front of 4,800 fans. This needs to be a real NHL arena. You got to have 17,000 plus in here. And they tried to get it done, but they couldn't. So the NHL had to step in and say, look, this is no longer acceptable in a revenue-sharing league especially. You can't be the weakest link in the chain for a decade and have us expect us to be like, all right, that's fine. So the league forced the hand of the Coyotes to sell. They got to maintain intellectual property rights on the Coyotes name. We get the Utah Mammoth. I don't think Arizona's happy about it. Utah certainly is. And I don't know whether this – I think that two different people now mentioning this. It was the president of the Chamber of Commerce that said it yesterday. It's like, hey, we don't want them to be the Utah Pika, which that's not what we would call them, okay? He was taking a shot at our naming rights. He doesn't like that the Coyotes became the Mammoth. The Utah Pika is just a Pika, if you didn't know, they're like they're basically a gerbil, like a wild gerbil. I don't know where he came up with that.
That's out of left field.
It's like a desert-dwelling rodent that that's not front of mind for anyone.
Utah native, never heard it. Like, what do you mean?
Exactly. But I think what we're getting from these people in Arizona is it's their way of putting pressure on the legislature, putting pressure on the political side of things, and on the mayor of Phoenix, who has demanded revamps to this House bill proposal. Like, hey, I don't love the way that you're asking my tax base to subsidize your baseball stadium renovations, which is, of course, probably what a mayor should do instead of just saying, okay, we'll do whatever. The small businesses around Chase Field in Arizona have said, you got to keep them here because our business model is not sustainable if you don't keep them here. I mean, that's a lot of it's 40. That's not 41. It's 81 games. A year that they're. I mean, the baseball season
boosts the economy.
You get traffic.
Yeah.
You get foot traffic. You get visitors. You get diners at your restaurant. Whatever. So a lot of the small businesses have said, no, we have to keep this field viable. We have to keep these people here. And the mayor, I think, is going to respond to that, and they're going to get this bill done. So when these officials are saying, hey, we don't want Utah, they're being so aggressive. Both Utah and Oregon, who wants to put a franchise in Portland, are being pretty aggressive with Major League Baseball and saying, hey, we're ready to go. We know we just had the GM of the Bees on yesterday, and he wasn't able to give us any timeline on exactly what it's going to look like for Major League Baseball to come to Utah. But we know that the Miller family, who has a successful past, successful history of ownership in American sports, has said, look, we're going to put a bunch of our own money into that Power District ballpark development. The city has been very forthcoming and very accommodating of changes and renovations and revamps for the downtown world of the Delta Center, with the Mammoth coming in and things like that. Utah is a place that's very pro-entrepreneurship, very pro-business, very pro-sports owner, quite frankly. And that has put pressure on Major League Baseball and now on the Arizona Diamondbacks to, like, figure it out. I cannot imagine how hilariously angry people in Arizona would be if Salt Lake City ended up taking two of their professional sports franchises in the space of like 3 years. I don't think it's super likely to happen, But it is an interest. I think that the strategy from these officials is to just put pressure on the political side of things like, hey, don't let it happen in baseball, what you let happen in hockey. Don't let it happen again. And baseball is a more ubiquitous kind of audience when it comes to sports. A night at the ballpark is something that everyone enjoys, even if you're not super hardcore passionate about baseball itself. I think that the economics of professional baseball and professional hockey are a lot different for a city and for a fan base, a tax base in this case. I think that's pretty clear by the numbers that the players are paid in both of these different sports. But is it possible that Salt Lake City could steal another Arizona franchise? It's not outside the realm of possibility. I think it's less likely this happens than the hockey club thing happening. But I love the fact that Major League Baseball has taken it so seriously that Utah wants a franchise, and let's be honest, at some point is going to get a franchise. It's become so obvious that that's a place that Major League Baseball is interested in going that now other teams, other franchises, other presidents of the Department of Commerce or whatever has to pay attention. The whole Western United States, anywhere that's got a pro baseball team, ladies and gentlemen, is hearing footsteps. It's like, oh, is that Salt Lake City coming? If you're Sacramento, if you're Las Vegas, if you're Oakland, who all have some sort of claim to the Oakland A's right now, Salt Lake City makes you nervous, justifiably so.
I think it makes the production better. It pushes them to do better. So even if we don't get one, like, it pushes them to create a better product, which I think is good.
Well, that's it. If you're the Chamber of Commerce president, Danny Seiden, and you're on a radio show, and this is the day after some other guy. I'll find it during the break. One of the other officials in Phoenix were saying, like, hey, man, Utah's like serious about this. I mean, we're talking billions of dollars have been pledged already to a ballpark that is not yet built. They haven't broken ground on anything. But there are billions of dollars worth of funds waiting to be deployed as soon as Major League Baseball waves its magic wand and says, now you get a team. Do you know how enticing that is for Rob Manfred? How exciting that is for Major League Baseball to have a market, a potentially brand new fan base, a new ownership group that is not actually new because they owned the Utah Jazz successfully for so long, and they've been the stewards of the Salt Lake Bees for so long, which, of course, is affiliated as a AAA team with Major League Baseball. Do you know how crazy that is to have one market that is just like, we don't want to give $400 million, especially of public funds. We don't want to have to share and I understand why people feel that way, by the way. I'm not getting into the political side of things, but when you're talking about what the other owners who officially serve as the board of trustees, basically, for Major League Baseball, and what the commissioner of Major League Baseball, when you're looking at, gosh, there's a lot of resistance from the mayor and from the voters and from this place or that place or whatever, that they don't want to have to crack off $300, $400, $500 million to maintain this ballpark and keep this team kind of on par with the rest of the league. Obviously, this is what happened in Oakland, right? They could not figure out a way to get a new deal done for the Oakland A's Coliseum, which literally for a decade now has had sewage leaking into the visiting team locker rooms. Like, that's not a question of, oh, you know what, it needs a new coat of paint. That's not a question of, it's not, the chairs aren't quite plush enough. We need to revamp this. That was like a public health disaster in Oakland. And I was working. I was there. When this first became a problem, I was on the home of the A's, the broadcast home of the A's, 95.7 The Game in San Francisco. we were the broadcast partner for the Oakland A's. And do you know what that conversation is like when your program director comes in? Is just like, I know you're reading a bunch of articles about raw sewage bubbling up through the floor of the locker room, but that's our broadcast partner. So let's not talk about it too much on the show. Like, what? That's
a big deal. What do you mean?
It's a huge deal.
People are going to make fun of you for not saying anything.
It's also disgusting.
Yeah.
It's also terrible. Can you imagine being a Major League Baseball player who spends a good amount of time, more than any other athlete in professional sports, at least in the United States, on the road, and you show up for like a 4-game stint, and you're just like, what does that smell, man?
Raw sewage in
Oh,
your
sorry, that's the poop that's bubbling up through the floor in what should be your locker room.
No.
You know how nasty that is?
That's disgusting.
So Oakland eventually, the Major League Baseball is just like, sell the team. And they're like, no, we don't want to. Sell the team. I don't want to sell the team. You need to sell this team. No, if you try to force me to sell the team, we're going to have a problem here. They're playing in a AAA ballpark in Sacramento and hoping that they can figure out Las Vegas. And guess what happens if you don't get that figured out sooner than later? Salt Lake City.
Yep. We're ready. Frothing at the mouth.
Vegas can't really decide where they want to put them. This Tropicana situation is actually going to be a traffic problem. I keep bringing this up because everywhere else is throwing roadblocks in front of either maintaining your park and your place and your team at the standard Major League Baseball expects. And Salt Lake City and Nashville and Portland, for that matter, are like, well, that problem you don't want to have, we want that problem. Hand us that problem. We could steal another pro team from Arizona. All of your friends that are down there, all of your, there's a strong now link between Utah and Arizona. The Valley of the Sun is like the whole, it's like the second highest Mormon population in the United States right now. It's going to be a rivalry all of a sudden. And with Arizona State coming to power in football, suddenly Phoenix and Salt Lake City are going to have a bit of a beef, and I'm here for it.
It's fun.
I don't know if it's going to happen.
It'd be so funny.
But there are 2 officials at least in Phoenix in the last 2 days that have said, hey, let's not lose this baseball team to Salt Lake City. Let's not let Utah steal our Diamondbacks and call them the Pika. And by the way, everyone knows we would not call them the Pika. It would be hopefully the Cutthroats. I like that one. Or you go back to like the Salt Lake Gulls. That one's tough because no one would understand.
You don't want a name you have to explain.
I don't want a name you have to explain. That's exactly right, Olivia. Yeah. You don't want a name you have to explain. No, there's actually a lot of seagulls here.
Well, yeah,
why? Because the Great Salt Lake, and let me tell you the story of the Mormon crickets. Like, it gets too complicated.
Too much lore.
Although you would have to explain cutthroats also.
Well,
because
it
people
also
don't know
sounds
what a cutthroat is.
Like, that one just sounds cooler than the Gulls. Like, the Gulls is like, what? The Cutthroats is like, sure, let's go.
That's a bridge we will cross when we get there.
Yeah.
First, you got to either get a team in expansion, which is probably a longer timeline, or potentially steal a team from Arizona. I like that idea better.
It would be so
877-353-0700. Let me know what you think. At Real OC Sports, that's one of the poll questions up there today. NFL meetings, the owner meetings, did the tush push survive? I'll tell you next on the Sean O'Connell Show. Utah's #1 sports talk, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM.
KC lead, and that's their largest of the game. There has not been a double-figure lead in this one. Nas lead spins right into a turnover. Jalen Williams, the drive, kicks it out in the corner. Williams, the drive, up and under, banks it home. Gorgeous move, and 10 straight points by the Thunder.
Jalen Williams got a nice layup. Game 1 of the NBA Western Conference Finals. That sound courtesy of ESPN with Mike Breen on the call. The Thunder have taken a 1-game lead. Demolition of the Minnesota Timberwolves in last night's game. Game 2 will be tomorrow night. Tonight is Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals. Jalen Brunson and the Knicks will host Tyrese Halliburton and the Pacers. We have coverage at 6 over on our brother station, 103.9, 98.3 ESPN The Fan, part of Utah's ESPN radio network. So we are your home of the NBA playoffs and the Stanley Cup playoffs for the NHL. We'll get to all of that on the show today. It was just disastrous start to this series for Minnesota. I don't think it's indicative of how the entire series is going to go because you were, record-setting bad in three-point shots. Ant-Man didn't show up. Rudy Gobert didn't show up. The only person on the entire Minnesota's team that was in the positive on plus-minus was Mike Conley. And Mike Conley still had a bad game. He was 2 of 8 from the field. So if you're the Timberwolves, you're just like, all right, well, we spotted him that one. You try to wash that thing away. We'll get into some of that more on the show later and tomorrow. But just gross Game 1 performance. Hopefully the series will be more competitive than that. I wanted to talk some NFL though. The football season is approaching. University of Utah, of course, draws the bulk of our interest here, but it's going to be a really fascinating NFL season as well. Still no news on what's going to happen with Aaron Rodgers. I think no news is good news for those of us who got sick of the Aaron Rodgers saga. My San Francisco 49ers are a pretty intriguing team right now. I don't think intriguing for all the right reasons, although that's maybe just my pessimism coming through. At the owner meetings, there were a couple of things on the docket up for approval or not. One of the most interesting ones was the tush push. I am not a fan of the tush push because, unfortunately, it brought the word tush back into the lexicon of human speech, of American sports fan speech. Nobody says tush except, like, my grandparents. Tush is not a word we want used.
No,
the
absolutely
tush
not.
Push. Like, Saquon Barkley won't even call it the tush push. And I'm on board with it. I understand it.
What does he call it?
I don't even know what he calls it.
Oh.
But he won't even call it the tush push. It's like it's whatever the play is called in the Eagles playbook is what he calls it.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Inside run, rugby scrum. I don't know.
Better.
It was on the docket to be banned potentially, and I want to applaud the NFL for doing the right thing. It was a narrow vote. It was incredibly close, but the tush push not banned. Still legal. Hopefully we find a better name for it. The most important part of the play is the fact that it's a legal football play, all right? And that teams wanted to ban it. The proposal came through to potentially ban it because no one's been able to stop it. Do we realize how disgusting that is from like a spirit of competition standpoint? Well, but it's too hard to stop. He's running too fast. Don't let him throw the ball to the fast guy. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
Ban Victor Wembanyama. He's too tall and athletic. He can't play in the NBA. Shohei Ohtani can't be good at both pitching and hitting. We don't want that. Like, it's the whiniest thing in the world to have a play that you can't stop, and instead of figuring out how to stop it, instead of scheming, maybe changing your roster, drafting a guy like Des Watson from Florida who's 465 pounds, just plug in the middle with him, whatever it is, instead of figuring out a way to stop the play, proposing to have the play banned is weak sauce of the highest order. And I'm actually a little embarrassed that it got to this level where it had to be voted upon and either voted in or voted down. And thankfully, the ban was voted down. I'm sure there are teams that will fail once again to stop the play, and they will try to propose this next year. But for now, the Eagles get to run their most successful short yardage play. Either get good at doing it yourself, so it's now part of your toolbox, or figure out a way to stop it. But don't tell somebody that they can't run the play because you don't like it. This is a ridiculous thing that made it all the way almost to implementation in the NFL. Another fascinating thing, we talked about this on the show yesterday. It was expected that the resolution would be passed that the 2028 Olympics, they're going to have flag football in the Olympics. And there was a proposal, hey, we want NFL players to be able to participate in the Olympics. This is only something that you can allow if there are protections for teams, for players, etc., with things like insurance, prevention of injury. If there is injury, obviously compensation for that, not only on the player side, but on the team side. And the ownership meetings led to a vote that has passed the resolution. NFL players will be allowed to compete in the 2028 Flag Football Olympics. Remember, we told you yesterday, there are 6 teams that will qualify to play in the Olympics as flag football teams. There's going to be a men's side and a women's side. There's no women's NFL. So on the men's side, you're allowed to have one player from each NFL team. You can't have Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes, right? You can't have Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley. One player per team. The vast majority of the National Football League are players who, of course, would want to represent the United States of America because they're American players, American-born in most cases. But, of course, there are several other that have roots, the way the Olympics are. I think it's if your grandparents are from a country, then you can represent that country in the Olympics. So of the 6 teams that are going to qualify, how many of them are going to be able to, with the Olympic rules on representation, how many of them, and citizenship and things like that, how many of them are going to actually be able to field NFL players? I think it's mostly Team USA. Canada is not in the top 10 of the flag football rankings. Olivia, I know you're really up on flag football rankings.
For sure. Yeah.
Just do me a favor. This is not unfair because no one would be able to get this one right.
Yeah.
Take a crack at the top 6 teams because the Olympics are going to have 6 teams participate.
Yeah.
Okay. The top 6 nations in the IFAF. I'm going to say it's the governing body of international flag football. The top, as of 2024, the top 6 nations in terms of flag football rankings on the men's side. I'll give you a hint.
Okay.
USA's number 1, so give me the other 5.
Okay.
What countries do you think are fielding competitive flag football teams?
Maybe Canada. Maybe they're on
Canada's
there?
out. No, I would have thought Canada. Canada has
Just
a pretty strong football culture.
Yeah.
They have a Canadian Football League.
Yeah.
Universities, high schools, they play football up there.
Yeah.
Nope. No Canada.
Maybe
They've
Australia?
adopted tackle football, but not flag football.
Yeah.
Australia also not on there.
Darn. How many countries can I name?
You can just name countries that you think like flag football.
Let's go. Maybe like Mexico. Maybe
Yes.
Bolivia. Oh, okay.
Mexico is number 3.
Wow.
Okay, so Team USA number 1.
Yeah.
Mexico is 3.
Okay. Maybe any in South America?
There is one Central American, another Central American country. This, by the
maybe-
way, is the exact. This, by the
maybe-
way, is the exact.
This is the same thing.
This is the exact reaction that everyone has while they're driving around right now that I had
Yeah.
or I would have if I'm not looking at the list in front of me, okay?
Yeah.
Team USA number 1, obviously.
Yeah.
All right? The number 2, and no one's going to guess this, the number 2 flag football nation right now in the international rankings, Austria.
No shot I would have gone
What?
Austria. What do you mean?
Mexico, number 3.
Yeah.
Germany, number 4.
Okay.
France, number 5.
Dang it, I was going to say France.
Italy is number 6 right now.
Wild.
Rounding out the top 10, Switzerland, Israel, Panama, and Japan.
Dang. No, I would have got no more than 2.
On the women's side, it's USA, Mexico, Japan, Austria, Great Britain. Canada is on the women's side.
Okay.
Spain, Germany. Again, Panama at number 9. I want to know
Wild.
who
What are they
introduced.
doing?
I want to know who introduced flag football in Panama.
What other
because
international sports do they have?
they're pretty strong, and Italy again. So the women's list and the men's list, pretty similar with a little bit of shuffling, and they added Canada and Spain on the women's side. So the reason I bring that up is the NFL has voted to allow players to participate in the Olympics as flag football competitors. You can have 10 players per team in flag football, 1 player from each NFL team. So I would assume that if and when the selection process, if and when the tryout process happens, the NFL guys that are like sincerely interested in trying to go win a gold medal are probably going to make Team USA.
Yeah, for sure. But who is? Like, I just want to know, like, who's dialed in on flag football when they're already in the NFL?
They've asked a couple of guys, and they're like, man, it'd be so cool to win a gold medal.
That's
yes,
fair.
that's true.
For flag football,
But
though.
the timing of it is a little bit of an issue here.
Okay.
Because the Summer Olympics are in July, right? That's right when NFL training camps are opening. How
Yeah,
many guys are going to be like, yeah, I'm going to
Forgo
opt out.
this.
I'm going to go spend a couple weeks in LA playing flag football instead of doing NFL training camp. Look, some guys will be able to do it.
Yeah.
It's going to be veterans who the team already knows. Like,
Yeah.
he doesn't need to learn anything in training camp. He knows the way we do things. He knows our playbook.
Yeah.
And again, it's 1 guy per team. So, but that's 1 guy per team per country. So if there's a way somehow for, I don't know, Saquon Barkley to come up with like, hey, I actually have Austrian roots. I'm going to play for Austria.
Yeah.
I'm going to play for Mexico. I'm going to play for Germany. That's what's fascinating here is potentially each NFL team could be giving 3 players to the Olympics.
Yeah.
It's not going to be the
No.
case because Team Japan, if they qualify, not going to have a lot of NFL guys on it.
No.
But really interesting to see how this plays out. And I brought it up yesterday. I asked a couple of our guests about it. Will this have an effect on the growth of football internationally? Because it's flag football. It's as if the 3-on-3 basketball in the Olympics had been introduced in 1992. Would that have created the multinational influx of players to the NBA? Would that have created this like universal adoption of hoops across the planet the same way that Michael Jordan and Larry Bird and all those guys playing did? I don't think so. But maybe. And right now, even if it was like tackle football in the Olympics, Team USA would just end up demolishing everyone.
Yeah.
And I don't know if the world would be like, hey, that was exciting. We're really glad they did that.
Yeah.
That was awesome. The Dream Team had this crazy like butterfly effect on the growth of basketball internationally that has continued to this day. Could that be the case with football because of flag football in the Olympics? I'm a skeptic, but I'm also kind of hopeful that maybe, just maybe. And by the way, if you've traveled the world at all, you'll walk the streets sometimes. You'll go to these different countries. You'll be out on a hiking trip or something, and you'll see every once in a while, you'll see some freak of nature human being that you're just like, whoa, that's 6'4", 255-pound mountain of muscle that's walking through the forest in Slovenia.
Yeah.
That guy should be in the NFL. But he doesn't know what the NFL is.
No.
He doesn't care about the NFL, right?
Not a big
Maybe
deal.
this helps in that.
Yeah.
Maybe those people now become more aware of football,
Worldwide
but I just
recognition.
don't know. I'm not super convinced of it right now. But the NFL and the owners and the players seemingly have decided this is a valuable enough effort that they wanted to put into their league rules that it is okay for players to participate in flag football in the Olympics. Is Team USA going to be 10 NFL players, or are there actual guys out there that are just playing flag football right now that are better than their NFL counterparts at the flag football portion of it? I'm a skeptic of that as well. We'll see how it plays out. Lots to get to on the Sean O'Connell Show. Roxy Bernstein's going to join us in about 10 minutes. Panthers, Hurricanes. The Florida Panthers, we talked about them yesterday. NHL Western Conference playoff championship begins tonight. We have that game for you. We have all these games for you. The Panthers handed the Hurricanes their first home loss of the playoffs. The worst goals against performance of the playoffs for Carolina. I'll tell you why the Florida Panthers are able to win games like this. It's something that could apply for every team in every sport, and Florida has found the best way to do it in hockey. Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. there's a sequence from the Florida Panthers-Carolina Hurricanes game last night that you need to watch. You can find it pretty much anywhere on YouTube. You can find it on Twitter. Just go into a search bar and type in Brad Marchand shot or Brad Marchand fight, okay? The longtime Boston Bruin is now with the defending Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers, and they're taking on a Carolina team that has been just unbeatable at home in this year's Stanley Cup playoffs. They literally unbeatable. They hadn't lost yet at home in this year's Stanley Cup playoffs. They've given up one power play goal in this year's Stanley Cup playoffs. This is a team that looked like they were in the right form going through their first two series and obviously getting to this point. And what Florida does to everyone, and what Florida has done already to the Carolina Panthers, who of course can take, the day between games, they can regroup. They just pull you out of your game. And this is something that applies in every sport if you're able to do it. And oftentimes teams will in basketball, teams will in football, teams will in baseball, not as much. Although there's ways to do it in baseball too. Teams in hockey will certainly try to do this. To use the same tool that the Florida Panthers are really, really good at using in order to get teams out of their game. Physicality, sometimes teams are built to handle it. And look, Carolina is a team that has some physicality, and they're going to, like I said, go back, watch this film, regroup, and realize that you can't let Florida's bully tactics, both on the boards and, with the forecheck, even in front of your goal, they pull you out by trying to lure you into a fight, effectively, without actually dropping the gloves, although in some cases that happens too, and getting penalties for it. Florida finds ways to get under your skin to an extent that pulls you out of your game. There are players that do this in the NBA. There are players and teams that do this in the NFL. In baseball, it's more tied to the trash talk and the bat flipping and, the weird gamesmanship that happens with players throwing at batters and then the retaliation for players throwing at batters and things like that. Harder to do in baseball. But Florida they just get you out of your game plan. Mike Tyson has that famous quote, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. And it seems like the Panthers, in these last two rounds especially, have just decided, you know what, we have the skill on this team. Let's just go out there, and we could go skill for skill with Carolina. We could go skill for skill with Edmonton if it gets to that point. We could go skill for skill with anybody. But instead of doing that, let's go out and let's punch people in the face. And let's either anger them or irritate them so much that they are pulled out of their game and they start playing exactly the wrong kind of hockey against us. And they've been successful in that, especially in this last game against Carolina. Ended up winning it 5-2. Brad Marchand gets so far under someone's skin. Shane Godesbear, he shoots the puck directly at Brad Marchand. He's not trying to score a goal. He just rifles one directly at the rat, directly at Brad Marchand, who's, one of the more annoying players. It's like chucking the ball at Draymond Green's face in an NBA game. Now, is that like an ultimate sin in NHL hockey? Of course not. Is that something, the ensuing fight, is that a complete outlier and something you don't see in NHL hockey? No, of course not. But what it is evidence that this Florida team, or at least one player on this Florida team, has gotten so far under your skin that you're not thinking about possessing the puck, controlling the puck, advancing the puck, passing the puck, scoring the puck. What you're thinking about is rifling the puck into that guy's face.
Yeah, you're taking the bait.
It's so masterful and yet so simple. It's at the professional level, you should be able to handle these things. But you can't, because at the end of the day, these competitors, especially because they're the best of the best of the best competitors in the world, they don't like what happens when a Kachuk comes in, elbows you in the face.
Yeah.
Like, who was it? Last night, one of the Carolina Hurricanes, and the referees didn't see this. I don't know what the NHL process is for going back and reviewing film.
Yeah.
But Sergei Bobrovsky in goal for the Florida Panthers might be the most important individual player remaining in these Stanley Cup playoffs. Jake Ottinger for Dallas, you could probably put up there. The referees missed it, but a Carolina player knees him in the head deliberately. Like it's a Muay Thai fight.
Jeez.
And again, that's happening because you just can't stand the whole Florida Panthers vibe.
Yeah.
Bobrovsky might talk a little bit of trash, but he's not the one checking you into the boards, high-sticking you, hooking. He's not the one doing that stuff. He's just trying to stop pucks. So you're now attacking their goaltender because you're so bothered by what everyone else on this franchise is doing. It's a fascinating thing that, again, applies across all sports.
Effective.
Like, if you're the Minnesota Timberwolves and what happened to you last night was such an embarrassment, just decide whether it's going to be Rudy Gobert or Naz Reid or whoever. Go send that guy to just start getting under the skin of all of these Thunder players and take them out of their game.
Yeah.
Get them out of their rhythm. They're now distracted. They're not going to shoot as well, whatever. It's fascinating how well it has worked for the Panthers. And now, every game, the stakes get higher and higher and higher, and they're getting better and better and better at it in the Stanley Cup playoffs. And by the way, it's incredibly fun to watch. When a professional athlete, a guy who's at the top of his game, who's playing for a trip to the Stanley Cup final, can't keep his composure because that's how annoying the Florida Panthers are.
Yeah.
It is so wonderful and so fascinating to
That's
watch.
the spirit of hockey.
It's great. ESPN 792.1 FM. We've got the Festival of Teas going on, powered by the Utah Golf Association and Mountain America Credit Union. Each day, we're giving away free rounds of golf to the best courses in the state. We got 18 holes to Wasatch Mountain State course. Scott Mitchell gave some away. I'm going to give some away in topical trivia today, coming up in about an hour 45. We'll do so on the Drive with Spence Checketts from 2 to 6 as well. Festival of Teas continues. We'll start hour number 2 with our good friend on the show, Roxy Bernstein. We'll talk a little hockey with Roxy. We'll talk some Major League Baseball, the NFL rule changes. Roxy calls it all. He follows it all. He is the absolute man, and he joins us next on the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM.
Near side at the hash mark, Reinhardt. Kachuk, near wall, snapped in by Barkov. Kachuk back for Barkov, near hash. In front, a backhander. They score! It's Carter for Hagee. Out in front. He has more goals than any player in the history of the Florida Panthers in the playoffs. 11:30 left to go in this first period. Florida off and running.
5-2 Panthers, who we were just talking about, win Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Eastern Conference Finals. Sports USA gave us that sound. John Forsland on the call. Game 2 tomorrow night. Game 1 of the Western Conference Final. Mikko Rantanen and the Dallas Stars. Connor McDavid and the Edmonton Oilers. Tonight, coverage starting at 6. We are your home of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Every game of the conference finals and the Stanley Cup final. Our next guest, he does a little hockey, he does a little baseball, football, basketball. He does it all. One of our favorite sports broadcasters in the business, friend of the program, Roxy Bernstein, kind enough to give us some time, brought to you by Mountainland Supply. Roxy, how are you?
I'm awesome, OC. What's going on, brother?
Just hanging out and figuring out what we're going to talk about all summer here. Our NBA team got bad luck in the draft lottery. Our NHL team got good luck in the draft lottery. So people are figuring out how to feel about all that. Let's go to the NFL meetings, though, if you don't mind. Are you a fan of the tush push, or are you anti-tush push?
You know, I don't have a problem with it because it's within the rules that have been established, right? And I get it. It's kind of gimmicky. But what if you're going to vote against this, Sean? What makes it illegal to you, and why should it be disallowed? That's my question. And
exactly.
I don't see anything that would persuade me to see the other side of it.
It's really funny. I'm looking at a graphic right now. The teams that voted in favor of keeping the tush push, none of them seem to be teams that are playing against the Eagles in the regular season this next year, which shows you the pettiness of all the teams that voted against the tush push, probably because it was a very, very close vote. But yeah, I think this is a relatively important day in the NFL, because if you had decided to ban a play just because it was hard to stop, you're setting a really weird precedent by doing that. So I'm glad that it didn't pass the resolution to ban the tush push.
I mean, just because you can't stop it, and the only way you could try to stop it is to vote against it, to outlaw it, that's an issue. Like, the Eagles have an advantage, yes, but they also execute that play very well. They have a strong quarterback with very strong lanes who gets low and drives forward, an offensive line that doesn't false start. They jump right at the snap of the football. It's a legal football play, and you want to ban a legal football play just because you can't stop it? I have a big issue with that.
Yeah, I'm with you. Another interesting thing, and I've talked probably way too much about it these last couple of days, that the owners voted on, was allowing players, NFL players, to participate in the Olympics as flag football Olympians. What do you think of this, and what kind of effect do you think that Olympic flag football can have on the growth of the game internationally?
Well, I think it's going to take a while for it to help grow the game internationally. We're seeing a little bit of international flavor with it now. But look at the success of the NBA, right? When David Stern went global, and the success, not just that the Dream Team had in '92, but even go back further when they started to incorporate international players. And I think at some point we're going to see a boost of international players, and not just, specialists, for example, that come from Australia, right? I think we're going to see some linemen, some receivers, maybe tight ends that come from overseas and are not playing football here in North America. And I believe that's what they are going for, to make it a more of a global game. Okay, this is going to be flag football. You realize, though, with it coming, 3 years away, that maybe half the roster is right now in college for the USA flag football team. But it's going to be fun to watch, and getting football in the Olympics. It's interesting, always in and out, that baseball comes out in the Olympics, right? Some years it's in, sometimes it's not. I don't know if international flag football in the Olympics will be here to stay, but I certainly think that's the mindset. OC is trying to make it a more global game, like the NBA has become.
I want to bounce around a lot. I hope you don't mind, because you're one of the few guys that I can talk to that has deep knowledge in every single sport that we are now paying attention to. And these Stanley Cup playoffs have been fascinating so far. Really, really interesting result last night when Florida demolished the Hurricanes. And I know that 7-game series, you can't write anybody off after a bad performance, but Florida seems so good right now at getting under everyone's skin and taking them out of their game of hockey. And obviously, they have the history. They are last year's Stanley Cup champs. When you look at the remaining 4 teams, is Florida at the top for you?
With the way they performed in Game 1 last night and the way they have rolled through the playoffs so far, I think you have to say so. And you mentioned, okay, it's the agitators they've got, Sean, right? That this time of the year that you have Tkachuk, who can get under people's skin, who's a tough physical power forward who understands, and those type of players seem to succeed this time of the year. Sam Bennett certainly gets, I think, under people's skin as well. But then you trade for Brad Marchand, who in a lot of places can be public enemy number 1. So it's a team that I think is built to win this time of the year. And maybe they benefited from Tkachuk getting hurt at the frozen faceoff and getting some rest before the playoffs began. But they're a team that is built for this time of the year. And you have a great goaltender like they do in Sergei Bobrovsky. Maybe they benefited from Aaron Ekblad being suspended for 20 games, so he was able to be fresher going into the playoffs. That's why I think the Panthers have kind of caught fire. They were just, I think, treading water, knowing they were going to be in the Stanley Cup playoffs and gearing to peak at the right time. Carolina had played great in the first 2 rounds, but if you looked at it last night, the physicality, the speed that Florida plays with, it's very difficult to match, and I think that Rod Brind'Amour and the Canes have to go back to the drawing board. And then we're going to see the start of the Western Conference playoffs tonight, and I think we're going to be treated to a wonderful series between Edmonton and Dallas.
How do you handicap that one?
It's funny because when I was looking at, Sean, how the first round played out, and with the Avs squaring off against Dallas, I'm going, they're going to beat each other up for 7 games, which they did. But the advantage that Dallas had, I think, going forward was Robertson and Heiskanen coming off injuries. And if they could get through, at some point they were getting those guys back, and they were going to be a little bit fresher. Ottinger is playing phenomenally well right now. A clear advantage in goal for me for the Dallas Stars. And I see a depth advantage for Dallas. But when you have the best player in the world and maybe the second best player in the world on the other side, and Edmonton's feeling pretty good about themselves, especially the way that they've kicked it into gear after dropping the first 2 of that series to L.A., it's going to shake out to be a great series. But I do give an advantage to Dallas, I think, because of the depth and the goaltending.
I wondered if Mikko Rantanen's kind of hot streak was going to cool off after he wasn't playing out of spite and, his former team wasn't in front of him. But, the guy's still killing it right now. And it's fascinating to see. And I guess it matters, and it happens in every sport. But when guys find another gear in the Stanley Cup playoff, even more impressive than what we see from them in the regular season, I think that's why even casual fans of the sport have to tune in for playoff hockey.
And look at the roster moves that Jim Nill made, the GM for the Stars, right at the deadline. You mentioned Rantanen, and who's had an interesting year, started in Colorado, went to Carolina, wasn't working there, and gets sent to Dallas. But also the trade they made with San Jose to get Mikhail Granlund and Cody Ceci to give them some depth defensively. That has really helped them. Thomas Harley has emerged, I think, as a legitimate force and a number 1 type defenseman, the way his game has grown this year. And Dallas has done a great job of drafting and developing these players, but also making the right moves to go get Rantanen, to go get Granlund. These are moves that have really paid off. They have been smart, and they have a coach that knows how to win this time of the year with Pete DeBoer.
Roxy Bernstein, my guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show, talking all things sports, because you can do that with Roxy Bernstein. It's been, it's old news now because of how fast the cycle moves, but the NHL draft lottery, our Utah Mammoth. How do you like the new name, by the way?
I was digging the Utah Hockey Club, man. I liked it. It was different. I got the Mammoth. I like the logo, and the name certainly fits. But it was different, right? I thoroughly enjoyed the name, the Utah Hockey Club. So it's going to take a little while to get used to the Mammoth, even though we knew at some point they were going to get a quote-unquote nickname.
So they jumped 10 spots. So they were most likely to pick at 14. The Sharks, your San Jose Sharks, were supposed to be number 1 in the odds, and obviously the Islanders took that pick. What was the reaction in San Jose when, your number 1 draft lottery odds don't translate into another draft lottery number 1 draft pick?
Well, I think that San Jose was okay with not getting the number 1 pick this year. They got it last year, and they hit a home run with Macklin Celebrini. The way the lottery and the rules are set up is you can only win it twice, I think, over a 5-year span. And for San Jose, I think you're gunning for next year, to be honest with you, with Gavin McKenna, who's going to be the number 1 pick next year, that there is a legitimate number 1 pick, where this year there seems to be some dissension about who the number 1 prospect is in this draft. I think that there's a little bit of depth at the top of it, and it's a forward-heavy draft. So at 4, Utah's going to get a really good prospect. This year, though, if you were like for San Jose, for example, if there was a year not to win the lottery and maybe get the 2nd pick, this may have been the year, just because there isn't that bona fide number 1 Celebrini Bedard player that is going to be hands down the number 1 pick in the draft.
The NHL scrapped the All-Star game for next year. They're doing, it seems like, another international 4-nation style competition. We've seen the NBA now start talking about that being the potential model. There's been all this conversation about All-Star games needing a revamp. Did the NHL find the answer that now not only they can use, but everyone could potentially use moving forward?
Well, just because, Sean, it worked for the NHL doesn't mean it's going to work as far as the NBA goes. And I get it where Adam Silver's trying to find their answer to what the NHL was able to grasp with the frozen face-off. I'm not sure what the answer is for the NBA, to be honest with you. I give them credit for trying something different, but there's no guarantee that this is going to captivate the fan base. And the frozen face-off really captivated not just the hockey world, but it grabbed the casual sports fan. And that's what Gary Bettman and his staff were trying to do, where the NBA, how do they get that back, right? You remember when, you were growing up, I was growing up, the NBA All-Star game meant something. Like, Michael Jordan took the court to win. He wasn't just going to show up and go through a glorified scrimmage. Where now, unfortunately, that's what it's become. And there's been no defense. And we've seen how it's evolved in all sports, right? Where the Pro Bowl has gone by the wayside. And it wasn't a great football game to begin with, but it's gone progressively downhill to now it's just really guys hanging out and playing flag football. That's what we got for the Pro Bowl. The baseball All-Star game still has some intrigue to me because you're legitimately pitching, and it is a game. Now, it might not have the intensity of a regular season game, but you still get to see the greatest players in the game on display. Where the NBA, you get to see their offensive skills, but it's not a two-way event. And that's what they're trying to capture. How can they get back into the landscape of what the NHL was able to do with the frozen face-off this year?
So as someone who is a bona fide sports junkie on all fronts, how are you dividing your attention right now between Stanley Cup playoffs, NBA playoffs? I know you follow it all. How are you managing?
Well, certainly the bandwidth right now is still on max because I'm paying attention to the NHL. I'm watching it because you know the hockey geek that I am. And I was calling games in the early rounds for ESPN in the Stanley Cup playoffs. But I've also had to absorb Major League Baseball because that's what I do also for ESPN. I was just in New York on Sunday. I got to see the Yankees and Mets. I was there for that on Sunday night on ESPN radio. But I also have a lot of college baseball coming up the next few weeks with heading to Vegas this weekend to do the West Coast Conference championship game. which will be played in Summerlin, the AAA ballpark of the – I'm still calling them the Oakland A's, Sean. Can I do that? Is that okay?
On this show, they're the Oakland A's until they're the Salt Lake City A's.
the Oaklamento, I think, is what somebody called them the other night. Because we'll see whatever ends up happening with Vegas. But so I'll be there for that. Then I'll have a regional and super regional. But a lot of Major League Baseball coming up over the summer and, transitioning to college football in the fall. You know me, it just doesn't stop. It's just cyclical. I keep going.
What college football stories are already on your radar? I mean, Deion's going to be in Colorado without Travis Hunter, without his son. Arizona State's all of a sudden good. Cal got some really interesting players in the transfer portal. What's already tickling your fancy in the college football world?
I'm just trying to figure out who's going where. Now that I've figured out who's in what conference, who's going where? Because in these rosters, what are they going to look like? And the additions that teams have made, okay, and who's going to be a surprise this year? And we have certainly with the Belichick noise that's at North Carolina, the whole Stanford thing is fascinating to me with now Frank Reich there for just 1 year. Andrew Luck running everything for the Cardinal. But I'm just trying to put the faces to the schools now. That's going to take me a little while to get used to. Just when you think you figured it out, people are on the move again. And that's the real hard thing to do is you're so used to players moving through one program, and now everybody's got a new roster every year.
Well, and you end up having, I think, a pretty unique perspective on that because, you'll call games – and then the next year you come back and maybe you're calling a game where that guy is still there and he's 1 year better, 1 year bigger. Or maybe you're calling a game and that starting quarterback that made the team so interesting last year is playing for a blue blood now. So your play-by-play perspective on it has to be even a little bit different than the average fan.
It is. It has changed. When you go back when Utah joined the Pac-12, right, and for years I was calling games for the Pac-12 network, those rosters basically stayed the same, right? Players moved through. Occasionally you had some transfers, but it certainly isn't the magnitude we've seen it now, and you got used to seeing these players develop and move through a program, whether it was at Utah, whether it was at Oregon, whether it was at Cal, or whatever Pac-12 school you wanted to put them at. Now it's like you have to look at the program and figure out, okay, where'd this guy come from? Well, what happened to this guy? Well, Fernando Mendoza's not at Cal anymore. He's the quarterback at Indiana, and Jaden Ott's now at Oklahoma. Okay, well, who's going to play those positions now? And that's the real tough thing is to figure out who's coming and who's going and getting used to seeing those players at that new location.
It's really odd. And obviously we have NIL to blame for a lot of these changes, this house settlement that a lot of people thought would be finalized, sometime early summer. Seems like new proposals keep coming up and new tweaks keep getting added potentially. I've lost confidence, Roxy, that the house settlement is going to settle anything, that it's going to bring any kind of a leveling to the playing field or anything. I just the timeline on it keeps getting pushed back, and even if they get the thing signed, now there's these potential opt-out clauses for it, which means it's effectively toothless. Do you anticipate that the house settlement, I guess, actually comes down sometime this summer? And if it does, it's meaningful for college football especially.
I'm waiting to see what's going to happen like you and hoping they're not going to punt it because we do need rules. We do need guardrails in the sport. And the wide-open transfer portal – that's the issue I have. I have no problem. Players should benefit from their name, image, and likeness. I am all for it. But the wide-open transfer rules and portal is the issue that I have, OC, that a player can be here 1 year, somewhere else the next, move on to someplace else the year after. And what happened to academics? What happened to pursuing a degree? And when players are leaving Stanford, for example, and there's no recourse, and they don't even think twice about the education they're passing up. Something is wrong with that formula. I'm all for a player getting a transfer once. I have no problem with that. But when they make it free agency to mockery of the system, that's the issue that I have. One-time transfers, go ahead. But anybody who transfers for a second time, I don't care if it's a hardship. I don't care what excuse they have. I think there should be a penalty, whether it's you're sitting out a year. But I also think there should be some contracts with the NIL. I know we're getting way off base, Sean. But, for example, I want you to come play for me at the University of Utah State, right? And I'm not going to pay you just, let's say, $200,000 for 1 year. Let's make this a 3-year contract. So you're coming in to play for 3 years. You sign this deal where after a year makes it nearly impossible to get out of it unless the situation is beyond fixing. But there needs to be, from both sides of the equation here, that there needs to be, I think, some solid ground between the two sides, because right now there isn't. And as soon as a player can look for the exit door, unfortunately they're taking it right now. And I believe that there has to be some rules in place, or this system is just going to be exploding, and it's just going to get progressively worse.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you, and I actually think that it's taking some love away from not just fans, coaches though. Like, and I know you talk to coaches even more than I talk to coaches. There are coaches, certainly not like a Dan Lanning, who's able to benefit from this new system because he's got Uncle Phil and his multi-billion-dollar backings. There are coaches, even at like big-time universities, Power 4 universities, who are having to re-recruit their players every 6 months and are having to promise high school kids, the bigger salaries than they made when they got into coaching. And it's creating kind of like I don't know, there's a jaded stance, it seems like, developing against guys that I would previously have told you were just like, that's a football lifer. That is a college football lifer. That guy has no other thing that he can do in the world. And I'm just not certain that you're going to keep the best minds in the game as coaches if it keeps going this way.
But how about the fan bases, Sean, right? You grow to love a player and you identify with that player, that he's with us and he's playing for our team. And then he's gone the next year. And you invested yourself into this player or this program, and now you look at, and he's playing somewhere else. And it's just hard to identify with that. And you mentioned the coach's perspective. But you think of the fans and what they go through and how tough it is for them as well. But keep in mind, at the end of the day, this was supposed to be about college athletics and student athletes. And I get it. It's a big business now. But the academics and being students has become a joke. They've made a mockery of the system. That, okay, if a player goes there, well, what progress are they making toward their degree? And does it even matter to them to get an education, or they just want to get paid? And that's the real depressing thing about this is academics have clearly gone by the wayside of what was supposed to be at the forefront of this for years and years. I get it. Players are getting paid now. They should be paid. But they also should have academic responsibilities instead of just staying eligible, and working toward a degree should be paramount for these kids.
Yeah, I mean, we've been around the sports world long enough to have seen and read all those articles about, we've seen the stats, how many NFL players end up broke after their career's over, how many NBA players end up broke after their career is over. And I don't want that to be a conversation about, former college football player, former college basketball player, didn't get the degree, got the $500,000 or the $1 million or the however many, and by the time they're 26 years old, no real job prospects, no education, no money left. Like, you don't want to see that happening to these individuals, and you don't want to see that happening to the universities that churn these individuals out either.
Well, look at Zakai Ziegler in the lawsuit that he filed, a basketball player from Tennessee yesterday, that he's already played 4 years at the University of Tennessee, has exhausted his eligibility, yet he's suing to get a 5th year because he wants to get paid. And instead of going to get a job or turning pro or doing something, he's trying to change the system again. And we've gone through so many headaches with this already. And look, I don't wish ill will on anybody. That's not what this is. But I'm hoping that the case gets thrown out or they don't win it, because there needs to be rules in place. And the rule states by the NCAA, you have 5 years to complete 4, right? You get 4 seasons either on a court, on a field, whatever your sport of choice is. And I get there are exceptions to the rule. For example, all right, an LDS kid goes on a mission and has an interruption to his 4 years or her 4 years of playing. I get that, and that's fine. I got no problem with that. But now Zakai Ziegler, because he missed his window as far as NIL goes, is suing to try to get another year. And this whole system is out of whack. And I'm really hoping that whatever court decides this case, that they throw it out, because there needs to be some rules in place. And right now, everything is just operating like it's the Wild West. And if I don't get what I want, I'm suing. And I'm pointing a finger. I'm coming after you.
All right, last thing. Who's going to win the NBA Finals?
I'm going with Oklahoma City. I thought they were spectacular last night. They have depth with Gilgeous-Alexander, how dominant he has been offensively. And I do really like this Minnesota team. I definitely think the winner will either be the Thunder or the T-Wolves, because Minnesota was very impressive, especially when they took care of the Warriors, minus Steph Curry. But I just think Oklahoma City's had a phenomenal season, and I think they're the team to beat.
Roxy, I could pick your brain all day. We'll let you go. Thank you for your time, sir.
OC, always a pleasure, my friend. Take care.
Roxy Bernstein, one of the best in the business, does play-by-play, as you heard him say, on hockey, on college sports, football and basketball, does a little Major League Baseball. The man really can do it all. He's absolutely phenomenal, and he's a real friend. I've known Roxy now 11 years or so. Great, great guy. That conversation brought to you by our friends at Mountain Land Supply. Visit mountainlandsupply.com or stop by any of their physical locations, the showrooms, for whatever home improvement projects you've got going on. Mountain Land Supply is the right place to go. Quick reminder also, ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM, excited to announce Dylan Gossett is playing at the Complex November 11th. Tickets go on sale Thursday. We'll give away a pair of tickets. You know what? We'll do it in like a few minutes on the Sean O'Connell Show. So get ready for a trivia question. That'll be at 877-353-0700. You know, I love a good list. You know, I especially love a good list that has some Utah Ute names on it. Sports Illustrated put out the top 50 draft prospects for next year's NFL draft. We'll tell you who in a Utah uniform made the list. Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. I teased something before the break, and I don't even know if I want to bring it up now because I start to get a little bit freaked out by the attention and the expectation laden upon not only the shoulders of one in particular individual or two individuals on a Utah football team, but also just the pressure that comes with like needing that guy so bad and putting that juju into the universe to like, I don't influence the football gods one way or another on injuries. I get a little nervous about it. I'm still going to talk about what I wanted to talk about, but I did promise that we'll give away some tickets at 877-353-0700. Dylan Gossett coming to the complex November 11th. We were talking flag football and the rankings in the international flag football earlier, as the NFL has voted to allow NFL players to participate in Olympic flag football. Team USA ranked number 1. Okay? Great. Give me, as we quizzed Olivia on this, give me 2 of the other top 6 teams. There will be 6 teams. Any of those top 6 teams, 877-353-0700 that we talked about on the men's side for flag football internationally, if you can give me 2 of the top 6, and, well, we'll say 2 of the other 5 because you can't have Team USA. I gave you that one. Obviously, they're team number 1. So if you can give me 2, I will give you Dylan Gossett tickets to the complex November 11th, 877-353-0700. I love a good list. You all know that. List season is out. Sports Illustrated put their list out for the top 50 prospects of the college football season coming up, meaning NFL draft prospects. Pro Football Focus did the same thing. University of Utah right tackle Spencer Fano is on both of these lists the top Big 12 player and one of the top offensive linemen in the country. That is the theme that has continued. We need to start taking a tally on the program here, Olivia, of how many lists, preseason lists, off-season lists, Spencer Fano's name is showing up on. I mean, sometimes people get lazy. I promise you that there are some writers who generate these things who have not watched a single Utah football game.
Yeah.
And they're just like, oh, the Fano kid, we know he's good.
Yeah.
And maybe they watch some of his highlights on
Just
YouTube.
ask ChatGTP.
But yeah, they're just Googling top players in football, and instead of at 10, they put him at 13 or whatever.
Yeah.
I know that's happening, but it's good. By the time the season rolls around, his name's going to appear on over 100 watch lists, articles, whatever. That's just, it's already 20. It'll be at least 100 by the time the season rolls around. And Pro Football Focus has him ranked as the number 10 in the country, number 10 NFL draft prospect in the country. Pro Football Focus loves Spencer Fano more than any of the other publications. Their grading system, he's the top tackle in the country. He's the top run blocking tackle in the country. They also like his pass blocking skills. He's just a guy that Pro Football Focus is in love with. They've got him at number 10. There's another list. The most impactful players, not even like an NFL draft prospects. The most important players of this is from Sports Illustrated as well. The most important players of the 2025 college football season. And it's like quarterback, running back, wide receiver, boom, Spencer Fano. It's wild how much hype this guy is getting. I love that he is. I think he deserves it. I think that his play deserves it. Interestingly enough, also, Jordan Tyson of Arizona State is now being talked about as a first-round draft pick in the upcoming NFL draft. Obviously, a lot of people like their quarterback down there as well. Sam Leavitt is getting a ton of love. We talked about his NIL valuation, his reported NIL valuation at least, being among some of the best in the country, higher than quarterbacks at big time blue blood programs, it really says something about the belief that Arizona State, and more specifically Kenny Dillingham, has in that quarterback, because that's kind of his thing, right? I mean, Dillingham is trying to build around a particular player, and he's decided to build around Sam Leavitt, and he's got Jordan Tyson. The rest of the list, again, this is top 50. you're looking at 3 or 4 Big 12 players on these lists total. That's problematic for the conference. That's problematic for Utah, for BYU, for everyone, that the pipeline of Big 12 players to the NFL seems to be getting squeezed a little bit by the NIL stuff, by the fact that the Pac-12 is dead, by the fact that the Big Ten and the SEC have all the money and all the power now, and they're really starting to squeeze everybody out. It's interesting. But right now, Spencer Fano on the Pro Football Focus list is considered top 50. And on the Sports Illustrated list, it's Spencer Fano at 15. And Caleb Lomu, I think he came in at 29. I closed that list, but I think he came in at 29 out of their top 50. So it might get redundant how many times I say it by the time the football season runs around. A lot of respected individuals, coaches being asked, journalists that pay attention to the game, and some of them that pay less attention than they should to the game, are looking at both of these guys as first-round NFL draft prospects. And when you have 2 of those guys on one offensive line, it goes a long way to helping out the success of your Utah football team. That is, I'm not trying to oversell anything, but I don't know the last time any college football team that Utah has even played against had 2 first-round picks on the same offensive line.
It's impressive for sure.
That's something that happens for Ohio State, for Wisconsin, who's been an offensive line factory, for Alabama.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at it, I don't think. Okay, so when Oregon had Penei Sewell, who was, of course, a first-round offensive lineman, did they also have another first-round offensive lineman on that team? They had other draft picks. They had Calvin Throckmorton and some of those guys. No other first-rounders, though. So when Andres Pete played at Stanford, it was a first-round offensive tackle. Did they have another first-round offensive lineman on the same team? He might have been on. Walker Little might have been on that roster. No, he wasn't yet. He was after Andres Pete. So I can't even think of a team that Utah has played against that has had 2 first-rounders on the offensive line together. You just don't see it. If that's what you have this year, gosh, I'm having a hard time tamping down my expectations. Be realistic, calm yourself, knock on wood that everyone stays healthy, because there's a bunch of experience sandwiched between those 2 tackles as well. But the lists, man, the lists are really showering the love on Spencer Fano and, to a lesser extent, Caleb Lomu. And it just keeps coming out. There was another list that really intrigued me. The Athletic is doing this series where they rank, we're 25 years into the 2000s. And the Athletic is doing a series of lists where it's the top teams of the 2000s, the top players of the 2000s, the top coaches of the 2000s in college football. We'll talk about those lists next, because I was dead sure that Utah belonged on every one of these lists. I'll tell you where they actually showed up next. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on Utah's #1 sports talk, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Robin Leano is going to join us in about 10 minutes, one of the hosts of the Locked On Mammoth podcast. We'll talk all things former Utah Hockey Club, now the Utah Mammoth. NHL Stanley Cup playoffs happening right now. Florida Panthers look like they're rolling. Carolina's going to have to figure something out. Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Final was last night. Game 1 of the Western Conference Final is right here later tonight. Also, we're going to be giving away some golf in about an hour for the Festival of Tees. Utah Golf Association and Mountain America Credit Union have teamed up to power our Festival of Tees, and we've got 18 holes to give away to Wasatch Mountain coming up in about an hour on the Sean O'Connell Show. So I told you before the break, The Athletic has put out this series of top 25s, top 25 teams of the 2000s. I thought for sure one of Utah's undefeated seasons would make it. 04, 08. But then I remembered that there's just a lot of Power 4 teams, a lot of blue blood teams that had national championship seasons in that exact same time span. So you had to take that with a little bit of a grain of salt. I was like, all right, fine. Top 25 players of the 2000s. This one, I was dead certain Alex Smith, Heisman Trophy finalist, quarterback of the first undefeated BCS busting team, he was definitely going to be on that list. Eventual number 1 overall draft pick in the NFL, and obviously a guy who went on to a very successful NFL career, although it took some time for it to grow into that. I was like, okay, Alex Smith absolutely is one of the top 25 players of the 2000s. And then I saw that they had Jaden Daniels, who's a Heisman Trophy winner, at like number 23. And I said, oh, geez, Alex is not going to be on this list. And Alex was not on the list. Now, the lists are great, and it still was really interesting to check them out and to find the consensus among the Athletic writers. And Bruce Feldman, we're going to try to get him on the show. He's the one who spearheaded this effort at the Athletic, ranking the top players of the 2000s. He did that one. And then the Chris Vanini did the coaches, and I'll get to that here in a second. But just as I was telling you, like, oh, Alex Smith for sure. And he is the gold standard of Utah football. He's the first name that went up on the side of the building. He's not going to be the last, but he's the guy, right? As a Heisman Trophy finalist quarterback. And by the way, like, I know it doesn't matter to some people, but it does matter to a lot. Like, just classy and intelligent and incredible off the field as well, and very inspiring for the way that he overcame the nearly catastrophic leg injury, all that stuff. So I'll go really quickly through the top 25 players and just give you some highlights here so you could see what Utah's best are up against in trying to make a list like this one. Quentin Nelson, the guard from Notre Dame, ended up number 25 on the list. And it's hard to quantify how dominant he was at Notre Dame. And by the way, he's been absolutely incredible as a professional as well. Aaron Taylor called him a Neanderthal throwback. Blunt force trauma wrapped in ballet slippers. That's just because of how nimble he is. It's pretty great. The Honey Badger Tyrann Mathieu came in at 24. Brock Bowers came in at 23. Sean Taylor, the late, great Sean Taylor, former Miami safety, came in at 22. Jaden Daniels, it was 21. Jaden Daniels came in at 21, the former LSU and Arizona State quarterback at 21. By the way, Arizona State has more players on this list than Alabama does, which is wild. Because I still give Arizona State credit for landing Jaden Daniels out of high school, and he was a Sun Devil at some point. I mean, Aaron Donald, Julius Peppers, Christian McCaffrey, Chase Young, Marcus Mariota's 15. Heisman Trophy winner at 15 on this list. Baker Mayfield is at 14. Devontae Smith, 13. Again, 3 Heisman Trophy winners in a row. Andrew Luck, number 12. Larry Fitzgerald, Utah played against him, number 11. Terrell Suggs, number 10, the other Sun Devil on this list. Terrell Suggs, you forget that Terrell Suggs, this was before they were officially tracking stats as like a game stat. Terrell Suggs in 2002, according to the Arizona State books, had 24 sacks, 6 forced fumbles, 1 interception, 3 pass breakups, 31 total tackles for loss. That's insane. Travis Hunter came in at number 9 on the list. Tim Tebow at 8. Vince Young at 7. Ed Reed at 6. Lamar Jackson, another Heisman Trophy winner at 5. Joe Burrow, Heisman Trophy 4. Ndamukong Suh, Heisman Trophy runner-up as a D tackle at 3. Reggie Bush, Heisman Trophy winner at 2. Cam Newton at number 1. Again, Alex Smith belongs shoulder to shoulder with a lot of those guys, but it's really hard for me to say, well, you should put him on that list instead of. So I thought for sure Alex Smith would be on that list, and then he wasn't. Now, Chris Vanini of The Athletic was given the task of give me the best coaches of the 2000s. Certainly, surely, this is where Utah sees representation, right? You cannot deny that Kyle Whittingham is one of the best coaches of the 2000s in all of college football. And Kyle Whittingham is on this list at number 19. 1 undefeated season, 3 conference championships, 2 top 10 finishes, 7 double-digit win seasons, 3 BCS or New Year's 6 appearances as the head coach. Number 19 on the list. Right ahead of Lincoln Riley and right behind Mark Richt of Georgia. Kyle Whittingham comes in at number 19. We gave you another list last week or earlier this week that he is considered the 9th best coach in college football, at least right now, by some of the 2000s. And again, he's got staying power that a lot of the other guys on this list don't have. 1 location, 1 coach, longest tenured behind Kirk Ferentz and tied with Mike Gundy, although he was hired, I think, slightly before Mike Gundy. Kyle Whittingham is at number 19. And, of course, if you're a Utah fan, you're probably like, all right, Kyle Whittingham at 19, cool. Our Utes got mentioned. Our Utes got some love. That's good. We're happy with that. You get 2 bites at the apple on the greatest coaches of the 2000s list because Urban Meyer had a couple of really incredible seasons at the University of Utah. 10-2 his first year, and, of course, undefeated BCS-busting 2004 Fiesta Bowl team. Urban Meyer, according to The Athletic, comes in as the number 2 coach of the 2000s, behind only Nick Saban, Sports Emmy winner Nick Saban, by the way, who at 74 years old was given a Sports Emmy for emerging talent in television. Can we stop giving Nick Saban awards? He's fine. He doesn't need any more Sports Emmys. Nick Saban is number 1 on the list. 7 national championships, 11 SEC championships, 18 top 10 finishes. 16 of those were consecutive. 13 top 5 finishes, and he coached 4 Heisman Trophy winners in that time. Urban Meyer, his runner-up on this list, at Bowling Green, Utah, Florida, and Ohio State during the 2000s. Nick Saban did get love for his time at LSU, by the way. Urban Meyer, his credentials in the 2000s, the last quarter century, 3 national championships, 2 undefeated seasons. One of those, of course, was at the University of Utah. 7 conference championships. Of course, Utah counts for those. 9 top 5 finishes. And the blurb is only 2 coaches have won a national championship at multiple schools, and they top this list. Meyer won 2 at Florida in 2006 and 2008 before stepping away due to health concerns. Returned to Ohio State a few years later and opened with an undefeated season in 2012. Here's the thing with Urban Meyer. If Urban was as steady and consistent as Nick Saban, if he was as constant a presence as Nick Saban, either at Florida or at Ohio State or at Utah for that matter, Urban Meyer would be number one on this list, or would be 1B, or would be tied. Urban Meyer is number 2 on this list, having taken time away, having been off for 6 years of the 2000s? 5 years of the 2000s? He hasn't been a coach since 2000, I should say. Like, this man, he's only 60 years old. He could get back into coaching. He was 38, 39 years old when he was coaching Utah to those great seasons. Imagine if Urban Meyer never had to step away because of the health concern, never had the issues, and was still coaching. I am one who thinks that he would have more national championships under his belt, more Heisman Trophy winners under his belt. Now, maybe he wouldn't have 7 like Nick Saban does, so maybe you'd have to put him at 1B. But if he had been at Ohio State all these years, or if he had stayed at Florida continuously, there's nothing that tells us about either of those schools that they are not set up for success long-term all the way through. Urban is going to be respected as a coach for his accomplishments in the 2000s. He is not going to be on the Mount Rushmore of college football coaches all time like Nick Saban is. And if he had stayed consistent and stayed in the game, stayed on the sideline coaching, he would be. Urban would go down. If he gets back into coaching and like from 60 to 70, he stays coaching, which is sounds awful, but he could do it. Maybe he can get back on that Mount Rushmore. I mean, he would be next to Nick Saban, and he would be next to Bear Bryant, and he would be next to Ara Parseghian. He'd be in that conversation of the greatest college football coaches in the history of the game ever, if he was as constant and steadfast as the other guys on the list. But according to The Athletic, your University of Utah football team in the last 25 years has had 2, not 1, but has had 2 of the best coaches in the game. And I don't think you can really dispute it. Ohio State has had multiple guys on this list. Ohio State has multiple guys in the last 25 years. USC has a couple of guys on this list. And I think that's it. I think everyone else. Oh, LSU. LSU's had Les Miles, Nick Saban, etc. Georgia as well. But I just named you some blue blood programs and also the University of Utah. So count your blessings. Remind yourself, remember how lucky we've been these last 25 years. And, I mean, I'm confident. My fingers are crossed for him. When it is Morgan Scalley's time to take over, he is a great coach. So maybe when we do this list in 2050, in the last 50 years, Utah will have had 3. Got to take a break. Hour 3 set to begin late, as it usually does. Robin Leonio is going to join us, and we'll talk some Utah Hockey Club / Utah Mammoth Stanley Cup playoffs, which we are the home of. ESPN 700, 92.1 FM.
pass from Rodriguez. Rodriguez at the near hash has control of it. He'll retreat, backpedal, near point, right side. Curling out, trading places is Bennett. His shot scores through traffic as the puck just scoots through on a well-conceived play by Sam Bennett. Power play goal. 13:52 left in the third period. 4-1 Florida.
Ended up being 5-2. We've talked about that game. We'll talk a little bit more about it with our next guest. That sound courtesy of Sports USA. John Forsland on the call. Game 2 of the Eastern Conference Final and the Stanley Cup playoffs is tomorrow night. We have Game 1 of Stars Oilers tonight. Coverage starts at 6 on your home of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Every game of the conference finals and the Stanley Cup final right here on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Joining me to talk a little hockey, Robin Leonio, Locked On Utah Mammoth podcast. Robin, welcome back to the show. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me back on.
Yeah, appreciate your time. We haven't spoken since the Utah Hockey Club officially became the Utah Mammoth. When you look back at the process and the results, how do you evaluate?
Yeah, I will say that, I feel like the team definitely kept, they kept us on our toes for a little bit. They kept us wondering. I do feel like it was dragged on a little bit, but at the end of the day, I feel like they made the right choice. Looking at the branding, to me, I believe it's a home run. I feel like it kind of coincides with everything that you want to see out of a Utah sports team. And it just looks awesome.
I agree with you. There are people who don't love it. I was talking earlier today about, Arizona is experiencing a little bit of angst over their baseball situation. And the CEO of the Arizona Diamondbacks and the head of the Chamber of Commerce down there is like, hey, we got to get this stadium deal done. We don't want Utah to steal our baseball team and to change the name from the Diamondbacks to something stupid like they did with they said Mastodons. And I was like, hey, back off, man. Like, it's the Mammoth, and we like it. But then as I was saying that, there's some people texting in on the show, oh, I don't like that name. I think it is. I think Mammoth is not a great name. We're all going to come around to it one way or another, right? I was coming around to Utah Hockey Club, even though I didn't love it in the beginning. But with this branding thing, it's all about whether or not the team is good and the results. Even if you didn't get your first choice, we all will learn to love Mammoth at some point. Is that how you feel about it?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I firmly believe that no matter what the team name was going to be, the importance was that the fans get the opportunity to establish the identity. And now they know now they know that Mammoth is a permanent name, and they can attach to that. They can be, we are Utah Mammoth fans. They can create, fanatic club names that they want. That you're already seeing some trying to create a little homage to the original name, call themselves clubbers, that do whatever they do. They're already kind of getting all in on the fun of trying to create that identity. And that was the biggest part of what I think it's getting the name process it's about.
So I want to get to the Stanley Cup playoffs here in just a second, but we've also got more local interest in the Hockey World Championship tournament being played. Vemelka for Czechia, and you've got these, a slew of guys, a slew of Utah Mammoth players representing Team USA, including the captain, Clayton Keller. And we're seeing some great stuff from Cooley, from Keller, Doan, and Doan actually beat Vemelka the other night. So the value, in your opinion, of this particular tournament, I mean, there was some disappointment that Keller was not selected to play in the Four Nations for Team USA. Maybe we're making up for that here, but it's really high-level hockey. It's good hockey being played, and the Mammoth guys are performing well. So how does this translate, do you think, for the Utah Mammoth once their season rolls around again?
Well, I think it's huge. I mean, what you're taking a look at, especially for the younger guys, especially for your Doan and Cooley, and those guys, they're getting an experience of playing more quote meaningful hockey. Those being able to play at the world stage, and just being able to play for your country. There's a higher level of pressure that goes into that. So kind of being able for these players to be able to go in, play well, and do what they can, I think it should really translate well to how well they'll be able to handle pressure when it comes to next season for this Mammoth team, which should make a push for the playoffs.
All right, so that was going to be one of my questions. We watched the process of, slow elimination. They kept it in the race, at least from a numbers perspective. They kept it in the race longer than a lot of people thought they would, and now you get a high draft pick. You jumped 10 spots in the upcoming draft. You got another year with these young players. You've got the pipeline that has been pretty strong, and you're a year further into the rebuild. Expectations were tempered when the club was announced for Salt Lake City. Bill Armstrong famously was like, "Hey guys, like we're excited too, but we're in a rebuild here, so it might take some time." Is next year the year that it actually happens, that this becomes a playoff team, and then maybe beyond that, a Stanley Cup contender?
I really think that they should be a playoff team next year. I mean, you just take a look. I mean, really at the improvement that they did over the last season alone. The final season in Arizona, the team only had 77 points. Added an additional 12 to 89 points this year. I mean, that's a massive jump. You get into the 90s, you're much closer to the playoffs. You add where this team is, the talent's getting better every year, and with the cap space that they have, with the assets and the values that this team has off season, they can make additions, they can get some contract extensions to really focus on making that push into the playoffs. Maybe not fully Stanley Cup contender yet, but they will at least be right there in the playoff hunt.
Yeah, I think you probably got to get, I don't know, a couple of cracks at the playoffs before we can really call you a Stanley Cup contender. But, that's going to take improvement from everybody, even your borderline all-stars, even your captains, the people that are the established veterans on this team. They're going to have to step up. But when we talk about the young talent, you talk about the growth like we just did with the World Championships, the guys skating in the World Championships. A lot of that leap forward sometimes happens between year 1 and year 2, year 2 and year 3, year 3 and year 4 of your career. I as much as I love Clayton Keller, I don't think Clayton Keller becomes much different of a player over these next couple of years than we've seen him be. And that's enough, by the way. That's more than adequate. But of the young guys on this team, who do you think is most capable, or maybe the team most needs them to take a leap forward for next year's campaign?
I mean, that's a fantastic question. I mean, Logan Cooley has already shown massive leaps and bounds over the last couple of seasons, but I've said it on the Locked On show, and I'll say it again here. Is I really think he has the capability of being one of the next NHL superstars. I think he was certainly the best pick so far out of the 2022 NHL entry draft, any of the top 5 picks, that is. And I mean, he will continue to.
Do we see
in next couple of seasons?
Sorry, I lost you there for a second. I thought you'd finish your answer. My fault. Do we see Tisha Ginla on Mammoth ice on a regular basis next year, or does he need more time to grow?
Well, the first thing first is Tisha Ginla still needs to recover from his injury. He had surgery on his hip that ended his season this last one. So that actually set his timeline back. The hope is that we will be able to see him come development camp this beginning of July, see where he's at, and then maybe he will spend one more season in Kelowna over in the WHL. Probably by 26-27 season, we'll see him suit up in a Mammoth jersey.
Robin Leano, my guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show, talking former Utah Hockey Club, now the Utah Mammoth. We'll get to the general Stanley Cup playoffs in just a second. I already referenced this, but the draft lottery, as you're well aware, Utah jumped 10 spots from where they were most likely to pick up to the number 4 spot. That changes the calculus dramatically. What kind of a player can they get at number 4, and how quickly could that player be an impact player on the ice?
Yeah, you're taking a look right now at the I'm looking at the draft pool that they have in this year's draft. It's very center heavy, and that's something that Utah can certainly use. in this year, and they can certainly get someone who could potentially be a really solid top 6 guy. I'm looking at some of the ones that fit Bill Armstrong's mold. A guy like a Porter Martone, who's above that 6'2", those bigger, more physical guys who also skate really well. That's the important thing that Bill Armstrong looks for. But I think it's really important to temper your expectations on when these guys tend to play. Is very rarely will you see a draft pick will play immediately in their first year. I mean, we see that with a guy like Macklin Celebrini or Connor Bedard or Connor McDavid and Austin Matthews in years prior, but those are generational talents. Even in a top 5 pick, it usually takes, at the very least, an extra season, maybe 2 seasons, until we see these guys make their jump to the NHL, make a huge impact. I mean, take a look at Logan Cooley. He spent 1 season with the University of Minnesota before playing his first year at Arizona.
All right, let's get to the Stanley Cup playoffs as we've seen them play out. You've got Western Conference Final starting tonight. You've got the Eastern Conference Final already a game in, and Florida demolished Carolina in the first one there. First of all, the matchups in these Eastern Conference and Western Conference semifinals. That I look back, the preseason betting odds had these 4 teams as the best odds to win a Stanley Cup, which is crazy. Vegas said these were the top 4 teams, and it actually played out exactly that way. So I don't know how many folks were surprised, but is this how you thought the West and the East might shake out?
You know, it's really, really close. I've said it, actually even before the season started. Dallas Stars were my preseason Stanley Cup champion. Like, I picked them well before, the first puck drop in October. I said, hey, this team, really feel like they have what it takes. And I even stuck through that after they kind of struggled a little bit, got some injuries down the road. But people said they surprised. It really didn't surprise me at all. I mean, Mikko Rantanen is looking like prime Mikko Rantanen again.
The Florida Panthers are just taking everyone out of their game right now. They're the agitators. They find ways to even cause people to fight deep into the Stanley Cup playoffs, which some teams are a little bit more reluctant to do. Have they emerged as a favorite potentially for you?
They're certainly up there. I mean, anytime you really talk about the defending Stanley Cup champion, I mean, they already do have a leg up. They did lose a couple of players in this offseason, but this last offseason, I should say. But I mean, they still have a huge aspect of their team that is in there. And you said it. They do play that more physical team. I mean, you can just name players, and they will get messy. They are not afraid to use their body. And I think that's what's really putting them in the leg up. I think not that other teams aren't doing that, but Florida seems to have it together.
I've said it many, many times in many different ways. There are very few players in team sports that can be more important than a hot goalie in playoff hockey. Whose goaltender do you trust most right now? I
mean, it's really hard to get to really look past Sergei Bobrovsky. I mean, right now, he's playing like all-time good hockey. Like, I have just anyone who can, like, even if you're a new hockey fan, like, just pure eye test, you watch a game that Sergei Bobrovsky's been playing in this playoffs, you're like, okay, he's the reason why one of the reasons why this team is getting this far. He's playing phenomenal hockey.
All right, so before I let you go, give me, like, I know that this is a wild prediction, and this is something that you can revise as many times as you like in our conversations that are going to be coming through the years. But, when you watch these playoffs, you watch the NBA playoffs, and Jazz fans are like, man, how far away are we from this? And it feels so far. You watch, especially like this Edmonton-Dallas series that's going to start, and it's like, okay, Utah is not there yet, but it's not outside the realm of possibility that the guys skating right now for this team will be in that position. How many years is it going to take, Robin?
Ooh, that's a good question. I mean, like I've already said it. I do think this next season they are a playoff team. It'll take a couple of seasons. Yeah, I certainly think this team could be a right up there, close to Stanley Cup caliber, say 27-28 season. I'm pretty confident.
You know what? I have that much patience. I'm not a patient person by nature, but I have that much patience that I could be on board still when we get to 27-28 for a Stanley Cup run. Let's go. I like that answer.
I mean, and it's certainly something that is optimistic. I mean, you take a look at where some other rebuilding teams were. Like, some of them took even shorter, some of them took a little bit longer. I think Bill Armstrong would probably say that probably fits at least close to their timeline.
Robin, always appreciate your time. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Robin Leonio, one of the hosts of the Locked On Utah Mammoth podcast, friend of the program here on the Sean O'Connell Show, with an outlook on where the Utah Mammoth stand in the Stanley Cup world. It's going to take time. The plan is in place, and this is the biggest difference. When you look at, and it's fresh, it's new, it's a product that we have a slightly less understanding of, but you take a look at the roster, you listen to the general manager speak, you listen to the coach speak for the Utah Mammoth, and there is unity, there's cohesiveness that extends to the fan base, that certainly extends to the players, and it feels like the plan in place is a plan that at some point pays off, that gets you to the promised land at some point. Now, of course, you got to see how it plays out. You got to have some luck, especially with injuries. You got to draft right, and then when you do draft right, you got to develop right. So it takes time, and there will be some requirement of patience with this process. And again, luck always is a factor. But the biggest difference between that professional franchise here in Salt Lake City and things in the Utah Jazz building right now, which, by the way, is the same building, at least on game day, you look at it and you say, okay, they're all pulling on the same rope. It all makes sense right there. They're further into this process, to be fair to the Jazz, certainly, than the Jazz are. But the plan is clear even to the most casual fan. And then you look at where the Utah Jazz are at and how the tanking thing didn't work out. And there's not a picture that's easily translated. Well, what are you going to do with Lowry? Is Lowry a part of your core? You just extended him. Is he a part of the core when you expect this team to be good? The Mammoth, they extended all the guys that you need to be good. They said, all right, Veggie's going to be our goaltender for when we think we could make a playoff run. Logan Cooley's going to be in this building, or we're going to demand a heck of a lot if people want to trade for him. Clayton Keller's going to be in this building. Dylan Gunther's going to be in this building. All these guys are part of what we're trying to do. I hope Sergachev is, but he's getting a little bit longer in the tooth, so we'll see. And you're able to, again, without having to know every nuance of hockey, you're able to look at it and say, okay, well, I can see who they've extended and who they value and who they've kept in the building. And you're not hearing, I mean, any trade rumor you heard about this Utah Mammoth club was basically like, you're going to have to ask way too much, or we are going to ask way too much is a better way to say that. We're going to ask way too much for you to get any of these guys, because that's how much this front office believes in the talent they have on the ice right now. And then, again, the flip side of that coin, the Utah Jazz, you're like, okay, so we love Lowry and he loves us, but also other teams might love him more, and we might just hit the reset button and do the rebuild all over again. Like if there's an appealing enough trade with this upcoming draft, because we didn't get the draft pick we wanted, and we didn't get the rescue of a number 1 overall pick, or even a number 2 overall pick, or even a number 3 overall pick. So maybe now we can move up and we can take advantage of the talent in this draft. But in order to do so, we might have to get rid of our best player, who we didn't even play for, like, we just made up injuries for 35 games this last year. These two things are not the same. They're owned by the same group. They're owned by the same people, but they are not the same. All right, back to the NFL owners' meetings. They made another tweak that I got to rant a little bit about. I'm sorry. I try not to get on the soapbox too often, but you put a microphone in front of my face, inevitably, I'm going to get a little soapboxy sometimes. Onside kicks in the NFL once again being tweaked. I'll tell you how and what it means next on the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Welcome back to the Sean O'Connell Show. We're giving away some golf in 10 or so minutes. Powered by the Utah Golf Association and our Festival of Tees, also brought to you by Mountain America Credit Union. 18 holes at Wasatch Mountain State Park. Great course. We give away golf on Down and Dirty with Scott Mitchell here on the Sean O'Connell Show and on the Drive with Spence Checketts. So make sure you're tuned in all day and you got your phone ready to text 877-353-0700. I'm going to give you a trivia question. I usually make them pretty easy. It won't be too tough. NFL owner meetings, they've ratified a couple of things. NFL players can participate in the upcoming flag football competition at the Olympics. There's only going to be 6 teams. Team USA in flag football is ranked number 1. I'm sure there's going to be some kind of noise effort, initiative from the flag football world to not just have the NFL players take over flag football for like those 2 weeks. Because, to be fair, NFL players are only going to be interested in flag football if it gets them an Olympic gold medal. Now, they're the best players in the world, so they kind of should get first dibs at representing their country on a football field. I know flag football players will tell you that the game is different enough that maybe the best NFL player is not the best flag football player. Put the best flag football player in an NFL game. I don't know how good they do. Put the best NFL player in a flag football game. They're going to be good.
Yeah.
Right? And by the way, this could be like a really fun thing. If you're Britton Covey, all right, currently with the Rams, hopefully in 2028 he's still with the Rams. He'll be, 31 years old at that point?
Yeah.
If you're Britton Covey, you should be banking on getting a gold medal in the Olympics. You should be like, whether I'm on an NFL roster or not, I have the style of football, the way that I move on a field works for flag. You can't touch me. You can't get near me.
Yeah.
I'm not running guys over. Like, that guy should be an Olympian. Maybe he's going to be too old by then. I hope not. But the NFL has ratified the opportunity for players in their league to play in upcoming flag football competitions in the Olympics. This is going to be a story yesterday, today, tomorrow, and then it's not going to be something we think about until it actually happens. All right? By the way, it's one player per NFL team. So you're going to have, one San Francisco 49er, one Kansas City Chief, one Detroit Lion, one Philadelphia Eagle, and there are 6 teams planned. We know that Team USA will be there. We don't know who else is going to be there. But as we talked about earlier in the show today, it's like Austria, France, Italy. The top flag football countries in the world are not teams that you would have expected, potentially. Mexico's good. Shout out to the Mexican Flag Football Federation. Good job, guys. You've really pushed your flag football teams to the top. So that's fun. That's new. That's cool. All right. Again, you're not going to talk much about it. It's not going to be part of your NFL life. The tush push, the goal line short yardage play that is used by the Philadelphia Eagles, where one or more players pushes the quarterback across the line of scrimmage. It's a rugby scrum on steroids. Like, that play was potentially going to be banned. The proposal was put in front of players and the competition committee, and it looked like it was a formality that it would, in fact, be banned. But the final vote saves the tush push. Love to see it. It's actually embarrassing that anyone would have put this forth and said, hey, we can't stop it, so make it. If it was a player safety thing, which you could make an argument, the way that if you watch rugby, there's rules about when you scrum, when these piles of 15 bodies are pushing back and forth, if you collapse the scrum, if you fall down on your neck, it's actually a penalty on you because it's unsafe. You're the problem there, right? You're not supposed to collapse the scrum. There's no such protection in this thing, so it does become a dangerous situation potentially, but certainly not any more than high contact injuries, high speed, high contact injuries. So that There's not a lot of teeth to a player safety argument against the tush push. So I'm really proud of the NFL, weirdly enough, for pushing back on that and saying just because people can't stop it doesn't mean it's an illegal play. It's not. It's a legal play that teams have to figure out how to stop, or at least how to put in their own arsenal, because the Eagles have done it best. Other teams have tried it to less success. I don't know, maybe you need a quarterback that can squat 700 pounds like the Eagles have. I don't know. The other thing that came out, and I don't know whether or not this really resonates for you as a football watcher or football fan, they did vote to change, again, the onside kick rule. Instead of just being a fourth quarter opportunity, now anytime you're trailing in a game, you're allowed to do an onside kick. Now, you still have to declare that you're doing an onside kick, so there's no element of surprise, which is so stupid, I can't even get my mind around it. It's so ridiculous that you have to declare your intentions. Hey, guys, this thing that used to be a trick play that we didn't want people to know about, we're doing it. It would actually be really fascinating if, the UFL should do this. Or like some low-level college team or whatever. They should, some conference somewhere. The Ivy League can do it. They're the ones who are always the outliers. Make it so you have to tell the other team the play you're running. On every play. Extend this onside kick rule to every play in football. When you walk up to the line of scrimmage, as the quarterback, you have to be like, pass play, and just see if the other team's good at stopping it. See if you're good at executing and still making it happen. Hey, guys, we're going to inside run here. It's happening. My high school team was not very good, but one of the funnest and coolest games we ever played in. We were coming from behind against Hillcrest High School. They had built like it was like a 28-7 lead. And in the third, fourth quarter, they just, I don't know if they got tired or what happened, but we just started mowing them down. And our team couldn't pass at all. We sucked at passing. We had like one receiver, couldn't pass. So we were just running, and we were a veer team, a veer offense. I'm not here for your criticisms of the veer, all right? But it got to a point, and Hillcrest, whatever. We didn't like them. Jordan High, Hillcrest, you don't like each other. Hillcrest was heavy steroid usage school back in those days. I used to mock them for that. Anyway, we got to a point where there was enough trash talk going on back and forth, and we were just beating them so bad. And shout out to my guy Tyson Malai, was having the best year or the best game of his year as a running back. He was just killing it. We started telling the defense when we would walk up to snap the ball, we started telling them that what we were going to run. I would be like, hey, we're going right there. We're going to run over you. And maybe they didn't believe me, or maybe they did and they just couldn't stop it. But we did that like 8 plays in a row. We ended up scoring on the drive. And it was the most gangster feeling I've ever had in my life. Like, we told you what we were going to do and you couldn't even stop it. Make that a thing. If you're going to make it so that you have to declare your trick plays, just declare every play. Just see who's better.
It's a mind game.
Just be like, hey, man, I'm running right there. Can you stop it? Because technically, you should be able to still execute the play. If you're good enough, if your offensive linemen are good enough, your lead blockers are good enough, you should be able to tell a team where you're going, and they're not going to be there because you're going to push them out of the way.
Yeah.
I hate this, that the NFL did this with the onside kick. It makes what used to be a chaotic, wild, sometimes tricky coach's decision into something that is predictable and is literally declared so that everyone knows it's happening. I hate that. Also, they changed the rule so that you get an extra 1 yard. Instead of a 35-yard line kick, it'll be taken from the 34-yard line. So the team kicking will line up 9 yards away from where you can recover the ball instead of 10 yards away from where you can recover the ball. I guess they decided that was a significant enough change because, again, you have to tell them you're doing it. So at least give me an extra yard head start. Yeah, sure, fine. You can have that. So the onside kick rule has been changed yet again in the NFL. The unfortunate reality, and this is another step in this direction, the unfortunate reality we're looking at as football fans is that at the NFL level at least, and that'll trickle down eventually, the kickoff is just going to be taken out of the game. Like, you're just not going to have it anymore. And I hate that because of tradition, but also because those are game-breaking plays. When you get a turnover on a kickoff as a defense, that is massive. When you get the kickoff return for a touchdown, even more massive. And when those things end up getting taken out of the game, which eventually they're going to if they keep tweaking the rules like this, I'm not looking forward to that day. So anyway, that's what came out of your NFL owners' meetings. The Detroit Lions, by the way, had proposed, hey, let's do playoff seeding based not on like division champs automatically get in and things like that, but let's just do, or not on it. They get in, but don't get the best seeds automatically just for winning your division. They had proposed, like, let's just do it based on record, which a lot of what college football is doing now. It's not two divisions in your conference, it's just the top two records in your conference get to play in the conference championship. The Lions had effectively proposed that version of things in the NFL playoffs, and they actually pulled that proposal off the table before the vote because there wasn't enough support for it. So that's another interesting thing that came out of the owners' meetings. All right, we got to take one more break, and when we come back, we're going to give away some golf. 18 holes to the Wasatch Mountain. Get your texting fingers ready. I'll have a trivia question for you next. Sean O'Connell Show on Utah's #1 sports talk, ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Sean O'Connell Show wrapping up here on ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Festival of Tees gives away golf on every show every day here at ESPN 700. Utah Golf Association and Mountain America Credit Union are the muscle behind that. 18 holes to Wasatch Mountain State Park. If you can answer this question for me. The Athletic put out a list of top 25 coaches of the 2000s. So we're in 2025. The top coaches since the year 2000, the last 25 years. Kyle Whittingham made the list. Urban Meyer made the list. Tell me where those coaches were listed, where they were ranked. Kyle Whittingham was at what number? Urban Meyer was at what number? 2 bites at the apple for Utah football on the top 25 coaches list, according to The Athletic and Chris Vanini. Then I'll give you 18 holes to Wasatch Mountain, courtesy of Mountain America Credit Union and Utah Golf Association. 877-353-0700 is the number. Spence Checketts is here. He's hosting the drive next, and he came in asking if I had touched on a pretty tough topic. Spence, going to be an interesting day on the drive.
Yeah, and we have Spencer Linton on the show today from BYU. So the Salt Lake Tribune is reporting that quarterback Jake Retzlaff has been accused of sexual assault. Now, it is a civil lawsuit. We need to be very clear. There are no criminal charges. This is breaking about 15 minutes ago. Kevin Reynolds and somebody else from the Tribune, Jessica Schreifels. I've never heard of her. So the Tribune is reporting that a Salt Lake County woman has accused BYU quarterback Jake Retzlaff of sexually assaulting her at his home, and this is November of last year. So that's all we know. Again, I want to be clear, no criminal charges. This is a civil lawsuit as of now. And for all the information, I would encourage you to go to sltrib.com. So we'll go over it. Spencer Linton is a BYU employee. My guess is he cannot talk about this. But, yeah, this just broke. And, look, man, I'm not trying to put the cart before the horse here. And it's always dicey to try to draw parallels here. But BYU has shown in their past that sports success does not supersede behavioral patterns. The Brandon Davies situation comes to mind, the BYU basketball team with Jimmer Fredette that probably could have advanced to the Final Four, if not further. Now, Brandon, if I recall correctly, there was no lawsuit. It was just found that he had relations with a young lady, and that was reported to the Honor Code office, and so he was suspended for the rest of the NCAA tournament. So now we kind of wait and see what the reaction will be from BYU.
Yeah, wow. That's a heavy topic to be discussing on a Wednesday. It is obviously something that everyone has to take very seriously. The civil nature instead of the criminal nature does change the calculus just a little bit on it, but certainly something that is going to be delicate for BYU to handle as the season approaches. And by the way, this is a season where, again, what you just talked about, that stance of being like, look, we have to stay true to the mission more than we have to stay true to the success of these teams.
Yep.
Like, BYU is a preseason top 10, top 15 for a lot of people, and Jake Retzlaff is a huge part of that. Now, whether or not this affects that is going to make a huge difference for their season.
Yeah, and again, only time will tell, just dissecting this in real time. And we should be very clear that everybody gets due process, so we will wait to kind of see how this plays out. But to Sean's point, this is an 11-2 team a year ago. Of course, none of this is the most important thing when it comes to accusations such as this. And as I'll underscore, BYU and the governing body have shown anything in the past is they take things like this deathly seriously. So I would imagine they've been in contact with Jake. The Salt Lake Tribune reached out to Jake and his people. They declined to comment. So this is just coming down. We'll have to kind of digest this and then see what we can do to try to cover the story in the most responsible way possible. But obviously, when it comes to something like this as serious as sexual assault, football is not near the most important thing. And we'll see what the governing body at BYU decide to do. In the meantime, you allow space because the civil nature of this suit, it's one person's word against the other. He's not been arrested. He's not been charged with anything. What does that mean for President Reese and BYU? And the new athletic director, Brian Santiago, is now, thrown into the fire here. So we'll kind of see how they react. So we do have a BYU guest on the show today. We'll see if we're able to kind of shed any light on a really, really unfortunate situation.
And the details I have are coming mostly from you. It's from last November.
November 2003. And again, this is all the Tribune piece, sltrib.com. So it is November of 2003, according to the Trib.
November of 2020.
23. That's what the Tribune is reporting.
Of 23.
Correct. That's, again, this is the Salt Lake Tribune. I'm just going off of what Kevin Reynolds and the folks of the Trib are reporting. This is, according to the Salt Lake Tribune, this incident occurred on November 22nd, 2003. So, yeah.
2003 was 22 years ago.
2023, excuse me, 2023. But again, that's not last year.
That's not last year.
That's 2 years ago.
That's
November 22nd, 2023.
Okay, so that it sounds like a pretty convoluted, difficult situation for BYU to have to sort through.
Correct, and that's why it's important to point out this is a civil lawsuit. So it sounds like this is an incident that happened, again, when it comes to the fall. It'll be 2 years when football is actually being played since this incident. According to the Salt Lake Tribune, she did go to the hospital. She did have an examination. She went to the police and then decided not to do anything as a result of conversations she had with the police. And sounds like she sat on it for a while. And a couple years later, she's decided to bring a civil lawsuit against Jake.
All right. Well, I will leave it to you to further flesh this out, and we will do our best to handle it all responsibly on the home of the Utes.
Indeed.
And I'm sure it's not the only thing you're going to talk about today.
Yeah, I mean, of course, NBA playoffs. The Thunder just have this level that maybe Boston has when they're fully healthy. I'm not sure anybody else in the playoffs has. And we saw it in the second half. Massive game tonight at MSG. And obviously, one eye on the NBA draft and ton of rumors about what the Utah Jazz could do. So I do think in the Panthers smoking Carolina last night, and then the kid fires the puck right at Marchand's head. I'm anticipating game 2. We might see like a four nations face off 5-on-5, drop the gloves before the puck drops. Game 2.
I anticipated that against the Leafs from Florida.
Uh-huh.
I think they're just enjoying being the agitators and the instigators here. What it does, and we talked about this on the show, and it works for some people or some teams in every single sport, and they seem to have mastered it here in these Stanley Cup playoffs. If you can get far enough under someone's skin, when you have the puck on your stick in the Stanley Cup playoffs, you're not supposed to shoot it at Brad Marchand's face.
No.
You're supposed to advance it up the ice, and you're supposed to try to get in the back of the net. And it is a conscious choice to do that with it instead.
Yeah.
That is detrimental to your team.
Yep.
No matter what.
Have you ever been hit by a hockey puck before?
Long time ago.
It freaking hurts, dude. That's painful. That's a dangerous play. And Marchand, went and tackled him. And in the playoffs, in hockey, we don't usually see fighting because you don't want to take the penalties because there's so much at stake. And that's why, game 2, I'm going to be glued to my TV. I want to see both teams kind of skate out because I wouldn't be surprised after that if we see a four nations face-off. Everyone's dropping the gloves. Let's do it. Let's get it over with, and let's move on.
That doesn't go well for Carolina.
No, but I don't think they have a chance anyway. Florida's on fire.
Stay tuned for The Drive. That's Spence Checketts. He'll be hosting it. Thanks for listening to the Sean O'Connell Show. And we did have correct answers come in. Witt at 19, Urban Meyer at 2. The top 25 coaches of the 2000s, according to The Athletic. So congrats to who won the golf. Let's do it again tomorrow. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700, 92.1 FM.